Let me say this right from the start. This is one of those games where you can smell gunpowder by move 5. This isn't a calm, thoughtful positional battle. It's a 10-minute game on chess.com between Flowwert's 2762 with the white pieces and Adrien Corvalmont with black. And from the opening moves, it's obvious neither player has any interest in making peace. The game begins with the French defense, specifically the sharp advance variation. White pushes the pawn to e5, black immediately challenges the center with c5, and then, instead of choosing the more traditional, quieter continuation, black makes a bold decision. c4, locking up the center completely. The message is crystal clear. I'm not looking for a slow strategic game. I want space on the queen side, and I'm coming after your c3 pawn with b5 and b4. White is in exactly the same mood and fires back with b4 right away. By move 5, both players have already launched their pawns forward like infantry, before even developing a single minor piece. Openings like this usually lead to one of two endings. Either someone gets crushed early, or the game turns into a non-stop tactical firefight from start to finish. Guess which one this becomes. Black continues with a5, putting immediate pressure on the b4 pawn. Instead of simplifying with an exchange, white takes a gamble, jumping the knight to b5 and grabbing a pawn. Now the knight is deep inside black's territory, under the watchful eyes of a rook and an incoming bishop. For the next few moves, it's walking a tightrope, but white knows exactly where it's headed. And this is where the game truly comes alive. Rather than retreating, the knight leaps to d6 with check. Black has no choice but to capture it with the bishop, and white recaptures with the pawn. At first glance, it looks like a routine knight for bishop trade, but the consequences are much deeper. First, white ends up with a dangerous advanced pawn planted right in the heart of black's position. More importantly, the bishop that disappeared was exactly the one responsible for protecting black's kingside. Quietly, almost invisibly, white has laid the groundwork for a future attack. The game rolls on with a few more exchanges in the center, and eventually a black knight confidently settles on e4, a dream outpost right in the middle of the board. Now the main act begins. White's queen slides to g4, immediately targeting the g7 pawn, the very pawn that no longer has its bishop defending it. But black makes a fascinating decision. Instead of worrying about g7, black ruthlessly pushes ahead on the other side of the board, capturing on c3 without hesitation. It's as if black is saying, "Go ahead and take my pawns. I'll take your king." From this moment on, the game is no longer a positional struggle. It becomes a pure race. Who gets there first? Then comes one of the most beautiful moments of the game. Black's c-pawn, which had just reached c3, marches one square farther to c2 and delivers check. How? The pawn itself isn't attacking the king. The trick is that black's queen has been lurking behind it for several moves. As soon as the pawn advances, it opens a direct line all the way to white's king. A discovered check, one of the most elegant and deadly tactical motifs in chess. White's king is forced to step to e2, right into the middle of the battlefield, with very little shelter left. From here, the game becomes absolutely breathless. White's queen, seemingly unfazed, continues her mission on black's kingside. She captures the g7 pawn, then checks the king, and even picks off the rook on h8. Materially, white is collecting serious loot, a full rook and an extra pawn. If counting material were all that mattered, white would be winning comfortably. But chess isn't about counting pieces. On the other side of the board, black's queen, working hand in hand with the knight on e4, is quietly tightening the noose around white's king. And just as white gets even more ambitious, bringing the queen to f8, apparently eyeing black's bishop as the next prize, black strikes. Now comes the final blow. Black's queen lands on d1. Checkmate. The knight on e4 controls two critical escape squares. The tiny c2 pawn prevents white from capturing the queen, and white's king is mated on its original square, without the bishop or rook beside it ever having moved. A clean, fast, and utterly ruthless finish. So what's the lesson from this game? It's one of chess's oldest lessons, demonstrated perfectly. White chased material, won a rook, grabbed extra pawns, and kept counting points, but forgot to ask the most important question: how safe is my king? Black took a simple structural idea from the opening, building pressure against the c3 pawn, and transformed it into a direct, decisive attack on the white king. At exactly the moment white was celebrating a material advantage, the game was over. A fast, brutal battle filled with bold decisions from both sides, and the perfect reminder that in chess, the most important piece on the board is always your king, not the material you've managed to collect.